Hi everyone, welcome back to another video with Yoseka. Today, as you can probably tell from the title of this video, I'm going to be walking you through and explaining the Lamy 2000. This pen is a well-loved pen here at Yoseka, including by myself. So I'm going to walk you through a bit of the history of this pen and Lamy in general. I'm going to talk about how to fill the pen and lots of other details that make this pen special. So I'll be talking about a lot of things, so feel free to skip around with the timestamps in the video player so you can tune into what you want to watch. But I will just get right into it with the history of this very fancy and nice looking pen. So this pen, the Lamy 2000, is like one of Lamy's most well-known and iconic pens, I should say, but it's not how Lamy first started out. So a little bit about the company. Lamy's a German company that started way back in like 1948, but they weren't really making a lot of pens yet, and their first fountain pen didn't come out until 1952, I believe, 1950s, and that was the Lamy 27. And it has, if you look at the pen, it has a lot of similar characteristics to the Lamy 2000. It's got the snap cap and the hooded nib, and it was supposed to be like a competitor to the Parker 51. So Lamy was trying to get on the fountain pen scene. They made that pen, but then Mr. Lamy decided that he wanted to really solidify the brand direction of Lamy going forward and change up how they're marketing themselves a little bit. So to do that, he hired Gerd Muller, who was an industrial designer who was like very well known at the time for working at Braun and designing a lot of objects there. Industrial design it's like probably not super well known, I'm not so sure. My background's actually in industrial design, so this is a little bit fun for me to talk about, but industrial design is kind of the study or the practice of design that deals with mass manufacturing objects and mass producing them, figuring out how they're manufactured and produced while still keeping it pretty and nice looking. So Gerd Muller was an industrial designer that Lamy hired to make this pen. And he did, he made this pen, he made it very beautiful, and it kind of set Lamy in this new direction. So now they had this really nice pen, and they had a design direction that they followed. So Muller designed this pen and helped Lamy with their brand direction by centering it around Bauhaus design, which is, back then, Bauhaus was like a big up-and-coming thing in the design world, and it's a school of thought where you try and get the form of the object, or like how it looks, to follow the function of the object. So, for example, this is a pen, its function is to write, you want it to be nice to hold, while also having it be nice looking. So that is what they did with this pen, and a lot of things back then were influenced by Bauhaus design. You can see it in a lot of furniture and a lot of like tableware and such. So the fact that they put it into this pen is really nice, and it really catapulted Lamy into this like innovative pen company. And so this pen, the Lamy 2000, came out in 1966, and it was amidst all of this fountain pen innovation in the 60s, like the Vanishing Point came out in the 60s as well. So Lamy was now right on the scene with this pen, and it really changed their direction like as a whole, as a company. And this pen has been very big on the market ever since because of its timeless design, its Bauhaus design, Bauhaus-inspired design, and yeah, it is a very, very sleek pen. It's won many awards. Muller himself won awards for designing this pen, and it's so special and such a tenet of like good design, I guess you could say, good industrial design, that it was actually in the MoMA, the Modern Museum of Art. I don't know if it's still there. I think it's still there. in their permanent collection, but if you want to see this fountain pen in a museum, it's at the MoMA. So that is the history of this pen. It's got a really rich history, and I think it makes a lot of sense for when you look at the pen, and a lot of people might be confused as to why this fountain pen is a little expensive, but I think the history really speaks for itself and the design of this pen. So now I will get into the specifications of the pen, like what makes it special, why is it a little expensive. So about this pen, I mentioned before that it was inspired and designed around the Bauhaus school of thought. So with that, another tenet of the Bauhaus design thinking is that every single detail should be intentional, and I think you can really see that in this pen. So first of all, the material is like this really nice, sleek material called Macrolon, which is a plastic. It's a polycarbonate thermoplastic, but it's very lightweight and durable, and it's a material that's so robust that it's actually used in some medical equipment and in a lot of different things. So that material was like a very innovative thing for Lamy to put on the pen. And then this cap is a snap cap. It's really satisfying. It's really satisfying to hold in your hand. Like, the experience of the snapping of the cap is very satisfying. Yeah, it's so nice. And then there's a spring-loaded steel clip here. And there is an ink window, so you can see how much ink is in your pen. It might be a little hard to see because I have black ink in this pen right now. The ink window is there so you can see how much ink is in your pen and if you're running low. This part of the pen is very special. It is the nib, and it might look a little different from other fountain pens you may have seen, but it is called a hooded nib, which means that some of the nib is hooded and shielded by the body of the pen, so it's inset inside of the pen body. And this is a really vintage style, at least in America. A lot of pens during the 50s and 60s had this hooded style, so that's a nice touch there. The breather hole is on the back here, and the nib is also a 14 karat gold nib. So it is plated with rhodium, but it is solid gold, 14K solid gold. And it is a little bit different than Lamy's other nibs in general. So if you can see, so not only is this nib 14 karat gold and a hooded nib, which makes it already a little special, the grind of this nib is different than Lamy's other nibs. And it might be a little bit hard to see, but I have the Lamy Safari here to compare. You can see that the tip of the pen has an iridium point to it. It looks like just a solid ball of metal, which is what most fountain pens, I would say, generally tend to have. But with the Lamy 2000, when you turn it on the side, it's actually ground into like this blade kind of shape. It's a little bit sharp. It looks not completely round. It might be a little bit hard to see, but it gives the nib a lot of character when you're writing. It just might require you to keep your pen at a more consistent angle because of that change in the grind. So some people really, really love this pen for its unique nib structure and grind. The last thing that makes this pen very special is the piston filling mechanism, and it's really special because it's been incorporated into this pen seamlessly. So when you twist the end, you can see it disconnects there. Once you've twisted the piston up this way, the piston has actually gone down, so it's expelled the ink, it's pushed the ink down, so that when you twist it back to its original position, you can see that it's sucking the ink up, so that now when the pen is fully filled, you can't see that line of where the knob is. It's very, very seamless. It's so cool. And I think that's one of the coolest things about the piston mechanism for this pen. It makes this pen very special because not only does it hide the seam in the knob at the end, it just makes for a very nice and pleasant experience when filling the pen. But it can be a little confusing for some people because if you're familiar with regular converters, cartridge converter pens, the filling mechanism is actually backwards. Usually when you have a converter and you twist it like this, that will actually suck up the ink. So it's a little backwards, so I will show you how to fill this pen properly. But before I do, I want to go over a couple of other just basic maintenance things for this pen since it does have a different fill mechanism. You can clean it with just standard water like you would any regular fountain pen by screwing and unscrewing the piston so that water fills in and out of the chamber. But it's not always the best way to clean out an internally filling piston pen like this where the ink sits in the body the whole time, because it can get stuck in there, it can kind of build up. And so if you want to give it a more thorough cleaning, you can actually untwist this middle section, which I don't recommend because once you twist it, you can create this gap where ink can possibly leak out of. It's not always a problem, but once you unscrew it, there's a possibility that it will be a problem. And so I don't recommend this unless you're really sure you want to do this. But you can unscrew the section of the nib and the body that has the ink. And you can see that it comes apart in two parts. There's this metal ring here that you do not want to lose because that is how the, what's it called? The cap snaps onto the pen. So you need to make sure that you don't lose that. But then on the inside of the body of the pen, you can clean out where the ink is being held. And another benefit of actually unscrewing the pen to clean it and maintain it is the piston over time can get a little bit sticky when the grease wears off. It might not be as smooth of a mechanism. And so what you can do is take some grease and put it on the inside of the piston with like a little Q-tip and silicone grease, and it will help grease up the piston for when it's sliding back and forth. I actually learned this from Mr. Goulet at Goulet Pen, so there's a really great video there if you want to check that out. But I usually don't recommend opening up the pen because once you do that, there is a possibility for ink to leak out of this middle part since the ink chamber is right there. But sometimes it's unavoidable. You want to switch your ink colors. I get it. Just make sure you twist it back on as tight as you possibly can so that the seal is very good. And if you're re-greasing the pen, it shouldn't be as much of a problem because the grease provides a barrier between the ink and the silicone grease. So those are the maintenance tips that I have for this pen. So now I'm going to show you how to fill the pen. So when you want to fill the pen, first you need to twist the knob at the end so that the piston is traveling in the downward direction, as if it were going to expel anything from the inside out. You can see it travel in the ink window a little bit. And you'll feel when you get to the end, it'll kind of stop you when it gets to the bottom. And then you'll grab your ink. I have our standard Namiki black here. And I'm going to invert it so that the inkwell catches all the ink. And then the breather hole right here is what's actually sucking the ink in, so you need to make sure that it is submerged up to this level in order for the pen to actually fill with ink on the inside. So you can see here, the ink window is empty. Now, so you can just twist the piston back down and it should suck up the ink. And yep, the ink window got very dark. You can wipe off any excess ink with a towel. And there you go. That is how you fill the Lamy 2000. And For the way that this pen writes, it's very, very nice. It's like a really nice experience because of that unique grind that's on the nib. And we will actually have a video showing all of the different nib sizes for the Lamy 2000 in case you're curious to see how this writes. This is the fine nib, just to give a little sample. The fine nib, you can see that the stroke lines vary in width just a little bit. And depending on how you hold the pen, if you stay consistent, it might change how the nib writes. But it's a very, very nice pen. It's a really good experience, and knowing the history behind it makes it even cooler, especially for me. Knowing that an industrial designer made it, it's a very interesting connection for me to make with this pen. So I hope you had fun learning about the Lamy 2000 and its history, learning a little bit about how to fill it and maintain it. And if there's anything that I missed, any other questions that you have, feel free to let me know in the comments below, and I will do my best to get back to you and answer your questions. And feel free to watch our nib log video where we show all the sizes of this pen nib. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye!